New Year?
Yeah. It's nice, quiet,
Yeah,
not too much.
which is,
How about you?
yeah, it was good. I'd say, maybe one of the nice things with COVID is that, you kind of appreciate the peace and quiet and a lot of times otherwise you're going to family reunions and all the, running every which way, and sometimes it's nice just to have a meal at home and just do something kind of low key and
We didn't even do much for Christmas Eve. We just spent it by ourselves, and then Christmas Day we went over to my daughter's house for a little bit. So,
yeah. Well, I was gonna ask you, so I
Hey Beth,
Hello, Sarah. How are you?
good, how are you?
Good, good. Ready for council meeting, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's
See, we have a couple people on. Looks like Carrie's on. Hi, Carrie. Maybe not. Carrie's on.
I don't know, she just joined right after you and I started talking. I know sometimes she
Okay.
has to call in separately though,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
for the audio, or for whatever, the,
Oh,
hi Michelle. Hey Michelle, did you get my, that bag I left you?
put on.
Okay.
all the time.
That's good.
Please enter your access code followed
I
by
can't
the
hear
can't hear you. Can't hear you, Michelle.
To enable audio controls, please enter your audio PIN followed by the pound or hash sign. If you do not,
Sorry, I'm late. I want to see the reservation first.
Hi Carrie.
No, I did not.
That's good.
Hello.
How come there's such an echo?
I might have fixed that. Carrie, do you want to say something now?
Yeah, is it better?
Perfect. Yep.
Yes,
I
yes,
muted
yep.
your, what you watch from. Like the name, the account that you watch from. I just muted that account. So your phone, you have it
Oh, okay.
mute on your own.
I'm sorry. I thought it was
that.
muted.
No, that's totally fine. I just thought I'd try
Okay.
it. If that helped.
Okay.
Good, yourself?
I feel like we lost Michelle totally now. That's weird.
We found her.
Yes, I was gonna say, she might be going into the council chambers to attend. And then she appeared on camera.
There
And
she
then
is.
it creepily zoomed in on her.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
right.
You're in a perfect spot. Does it feel like a good one for you? Okay. We can rearrange, try more.
So I can text me. Kind of, have a seat. So he's hoping some of you guys will make motions. He went to the yard today. So it's kind of a different announcement.
One of these two spots.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's got it, his wife has got it.
Sit down and shut up. Is that right?
It's a few days ago.
How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
It's tough talk.
I printed off another. Oh,
Probably a coworker.
When I went back to work. You know how that
So he's
goes.
hoping some of you guys step up to the plate and make motions, make seconds, and get the meeting over with. I told him how Ron was step up. And so you're here, I figured to tell you, just so you know in the background.
Okay. So they'll do the, the pledge.
Zoom. That's true.
The best.
Some days I'm not so sad. Yeah, so I started off calling every day.
Sarah or Beth, can you guys still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Carrie. Sounds good.
Okay, everything just got really, really quiet, so I thought maybe I got disconnected.
Nope, and I think Kirk joined us too. I'm wondering if Kirk can hear us or if we can hear him.
Let's see, Kirk can hear you, and I hope you can hear me.
Ah,
can hear
yes, we
you.
can hear you, Kirk. Awesome,
Okay.
perfect.
That's okay. Okay.
This is Rayanne. I'm joining. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, Rayanne,
Yeah.
we can hear you good. Sounds good.
Thanks.
Yeah, I guess these are our spots. I know, right?
Mess things up. How could we look at TV, especially with your assignments?
We were just talking about, how does Thursday work for you to get together to kind of decompress after?
This Thursday?
Yeah?
Did you send me?
Anybody there?
Okay, I didn't check any.
We can hear you, Ron. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Perfect.
That's good enough.
Real good. You want to do it first thing?
If that's okay, otherwise I have like 10:30
Thank
to
you.
12:30. Are you off that day?
No.
Okay, so let's do your morning time then?
Yeah.
7 again?
Yep.
Okay. 7, Thursday morning?
Yeah, that works. That's the deal.
All right, sure. Is that okay?
Seven, right?
Is that okay?
Yep.
I better write that down myself. I'll send out an email reminder tomorrow.
No. I got through 90%. asking for $5,000. $500.
What time do we have on the computers?
7 on the dot.
7 o'clock on the.
7 o'clock on the,
Yep.
all right, so our clock up there is a little late. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Michelle, can you take roll call?
This conference
will.
will now be
Hi.
recorded.
Rayanne is recording, so she's much more timely than me. Mayor Horn,
Here.
Alderman Kittle,
Here.
Alderman Lindell,
Here.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Here.
Alderman Montello,
Here.
Alderman Volkert,
Here.
Alderman Kraft.
Here.
Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, that carries. Public comments. Is there anybody who wishes to make a public comment at this time? Come on up to the microphone. Kyle, you gonna turn it on? That way everybody at home can hear you too.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Nybakken. I apologize, I don't know the process, but I sent Mayor a letter on the 18th of December. So I just assumed that it would be up for discussion tonight. I don't know if this is the right, or if I should be. Or if I
Yeah,
should-
go ahead. Go ahead.
Should I read the letter?
If you want, yes, you bet.
Okay. This letter was sent again to Mayor Fred Horn regarding waste management. Dear Mayor Horn, I want to bring to your attention and the council's attention a questionable practice done by waste management that does not meet consumer protection requirements. By the way, how many use waste management? Do you know that they charge $75 if you want to cancel, pick up your container? No, nobody does. So let me read the rest of the letter.
Yeah, I was aware of that.
Okay. I had Stevens Sanitation as my trash pickup company. They were purchased by Waste Management. Since their takeover, they started putting a note on the back of their invoice stating that you will be assessed a cart removal charge of $75 plus tax plus fuel. I attached a copy of it to you, but I can show it to anybody that wants to take a look at it. They state by paying the invoice, the patron is agreeing to this charge in the contract. Well, this is not valid, of course. An invoice is a requirement to pay for services rendered. So you don't have any way to say no. You have to pay the invoice. To install this type of charge, Waste Management is required to give all customers a separate advance notice of this charge effective at a future date, giving all customers the ability to opt out of this new charge by canceling service. Of course, they don't want to do that. I notified Waste Management that I was canceling my service by phone and in writing. I informed them by mail and phone of this, and also that they could not assess the charge for container pickup. I subsequently received a bill for $75 for removal of the container. I sent them a letter on October 9th, 2020, stating that the charge was not valid and they should remove it from my account. I did not hear anything more until they sent me a past due notice dated December 8th. I would ask that the city of New Richmond inform Waste Management to cease and desist this improper process. And if they do not, they will lose their authorization to do business in the city of New Richmond. It's really kind of interesting. You look at the invoice that you get that you have to pay. Nobody reads them, you pay them. Here on the back, they put this in, I can tell you what month they started. And it says on the continued service during the specified service period into the terms of with no refund, whole or partial, for any cancellation unless such refund is required by law, regulation, or contract. If you cancel services, you will be assessed a cart removal charges up to $75 plus applicable taxes and charges, including fuel surcharge, environmental charge, and regulatory cost recovery charge.
I've got a question for you. So did they come and pick up your can?
They did.
So I
I
switched,
cleaned it, so
I-
they couldn't
I-
charge me for cleaning it, although they say that's part of it.
I canceled in November. They haven't charged me, but they haven't picked up their can yet. It's still sitting there.
Interesting.
That's probably why I haven't been billed.
Mhm.
So we'll talk with, have Nick look into it, and I think we'll send them a letter.
I know, Nick, if there's any of this information he would like me to give him, just have him call me and I'll show him copies.
Why don't you leave your bill?
Pardon?
If, is that your bill?
I've got a bill. It is.
Are you okay with leaving that here?
Um,
Or do you want it?
Yeah, no,
I got a bill we could use too.
Okay, all right.
If the same statement's on the back of my bill, which I assume it
It
is,
certainly is.
then
And
I could just give him a copy of my bill. It's not a
I
big
can
deal.
tell you exactly when it started here, just so you know that.
What started with, I presume when they bought out Stevens
I
Sanitation.
would guess.
Well, they didn't start right away.
They didn't.
Oh,
My bill that I paid May 7th, 2019 does not have it on there. And then they bill every 2 months, then bill I paid June 21st of 2019 has it on there.
it was on there.
And then on the next bill, they added even a little bit more. Environmental charge and the surcharge and the fuel charge. Interesting way to increase your fees
Yeah.
Yeah.
without having to notify the customers.
We'll have the city attorney reach out to him, and Noah will be in touch with you with what his findings are, or his statement.
I've not read that. I'm sorry. I do have a quick question for you. Is there anything in there that says this is a temporary situation because of, it's now their new policy?
It's been on that invoice ever since middle of 2019.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Mayor Horn.
Yes, sir.
I contacted Nick last week regarding this issue. He did not know the answer and he was going to contact Noah. And I don't know. That's where it is right now.
They'll look into it.
And Mr. Mayor, this is Alderman Montello, and I just want to add, excuse me, that this is not an uncommon thing that some of these big corporations do, and obviously waste management is very big. It's interesting, if you're a waste management customer, did you sign an agreement that gave them the right to charge you that? My guess is that big company throws this out there. There's enough people who just pay, and they get what they want out of the deal. And I'd love to see us pursue a direction with them that's not coddling. This is either going to be square with the way the law is and good business practices, or yes, you will lose your right to pick up garbage in the city of Richmond. I think we owe that to our constituents. And yeah, it's not our fault. We didn't take a private contractor and turn him into to waste management. That has nothing to do with the city, but I think the city can definitely offer some protection here. It's unfortunate. There are a number of people who just pay and not even say anything.
That's good advice.
And I did speak with Nick Vivian last week. So the city does have an annual license that can be revoked. So there is some leverage there that the city has if there are certain standards or expectations that are not being met. So something we can look into further this week. But there is an annual license for all haulers in the community.
Yeah.
So definitely something we can look at.
It seems to be an unethical business practice.
Without any explanation. I mean, there may be some
Without-
explanation as to maybe they have a fee on the other end of theirs, what they're disposing of. But if it's just to put it in there to make more money.
That's what it is. Craig, that's what it is. There is no explanation other than they're going to increase profitability, plain and simple.
Okay.
They have every right to install a new fee. But to do
To give you, to give,
Has the option to say, okay.
Yeah, to opt out
I'm
of
not
it.
paying that fee.
Yeah.
No.
we will look into it.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you. Anybody else have a public comment? All right, hearing none. Consent agenda.
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, there's a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
I'll second it. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Mayor, did we ever adopt the agenda? Did I miss that?
We did.
And were we able, and I don't know, I talked with Noah about moving item, and I'm sorry, I apologize if I missed that, about moving item, I think it's 7.2, or maybe, I don't know if it's 7.2 or 7, yes, if we were going to move that,
Yeah.
able to move that down.
We'll take that up as soon as Dr. Tanner arrives.
All right, sorry.
Yep, not a problem. Oh, I forgot where we're at. We had the motion second. We're going to do the roll. Is that where we're at? We did the roll.
All in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
They did.
Did that.
We did that.
Good.
Opposed, carried.
Uh,
All
that
right.
carries.
My memory's going as I'm getting older.
Gotcha.
All right. Item 7.1, the library master plan.
Good evening, Mayor Horn and City Council. We have a small presentation we'll be going through, and if you are participating virtually, even if you don't have your computer screen in front of you, most of this is bullet points, so you are just welcome to listen as well. For the council members that are here in person, I did print off the slides here in front of you. Just wanted to introduce our guest this evening. We have Mr. Brian Schaefer as the school board president for the Richmond School District. And then Vicki Jovic, some of you may know, is our school district representative on the library board. We gave a presentation last week to the school board and to the library board, and we'll be giving the same presentation here this evening. And we really hope this will help kick off our conversation and set a good foundation for us moving forward with the library project. So without further ado, the three of us will be presenting. We'll try to go through these slides as quickly as we can. We'll have time available at the end for questions and comments. So with that, I'll turn things over to Brian.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you on this important issue tonight as a representative of the New Richmond School Board. I know a few of the council members, I believe, were seated when some of the pieces of this transaction and the process of talking about the former commons being a library or potential for a new library. So for those that have not been involved, I'm just going to provide just a kind of a brief background of where this started, where we are today, and we'll kind of move on from there. Myself, I was involved initially in the referendum and the building of the new school buildings, and then the transition of the old middle school to the commons, and then I was out for a while. So there were other members of the board that were involved in writing the master agreement with the city. So we all have played a part along the way. So we're hoping to bring this all together and I guess get some new energy behind it and get this project done. So first of all, starting out, the original development agreement was approved in July of 2016. The library master plan was approved in the spring of 2017, and it provided a vision and some guides for future use of the property. The old middle school was raised. Ownership of the property was transferred from the school district to the city in the fall of 2017. Grading and site work were to begin in the fall of 2019. Otherwise, the district could request the city to convey the property back to the district. So we've had 2 extensions to that agreement thus far that the city is, or that the school district has honored the request of the city to extend. The existing library master plan outlines possible building spaces, maker space, deli, coffee, gallery, business incubator, flexible conference rooms, outdoor public spaces. It shows conceptual sketches to better visualize how the building and the parking lot might look on that site. It stresses the importance of incorporating public feedback for design of the library, and there had been some public feedback that was gathered. Notes need to address parking, vehicle circulation, traffic speed in the area as part of the site process. So in the existing master plan, the summary section of that, I don't know if you review that, there are several, I will call them stipulations, if you will. And just to note a few of those. One was the agreement or notion that there would be no residential development as part of this, no city offices or structures, and no additional buildings for commercial enterprise outside of the library building on the property. So when we looked at that, we already are starting with kind of with some negativity, and it's about what we can't do as opposed to what we can do. So the three of us met a short time ago, and that was the main point of our conversation: is how can we turn this around and look at focusing on the possibilities for the library project rather than creating barriers. So as Noah mentioned, we met with the school board last week with the purpose of, again, I'm only one vote on the board, but the idea that would the school board be interested in perhaps relaxing some of these restrictions or look at other options so that we can move this project forward. And what the nod was yes, which enabled us to go to the library board last week and now to city council. So with that, we are here as, let's say we are the fire starters. There are going to be more questions and answers when we get done tonight. We don't have those answers. We're going to be just looking for direction from both the school board, library board, and the city council to move forward in exploring more options than what we may be limited to in this master agreement.
Hey, so I just kind of want to go over a little bit of the history really quickly again, to Brian's point, for those of you that might not have been on this journey from the onset. And for those of you that have, I apologize for the redundancy. But the library originally was built in 1963 when the service population in this area was 4,500 people. The building addition was completed in 1989 when the service population was 1,100 people. I'm sorry, 11,000 people, and there were no computers. So if you fast forward to where we are today, the library today, the facility does not meet the needs of the 21st century, as you would expect it not to, given the history of the building and the population it was servicing. And the educational needs of the community, the size and enrichment are not able to sufficiently be met in that facility. We have need for internet, ebooks, audiobooks, STEM focus, video animation, diverse classes and programming. The population, the library surface population now in 2021 is 21,686, a significant difference from what it was when they did the last edition. So if you move to the next slide, you'll note that libraries, historically, this is what you think of when you think of a library: a quiet space, people aren't talking, sitting at tables. And now, in the next slide, it's evolved more to this. So some of those things that Mr. Schaefer alluded, where there's maker spaces, projects, STEM kind of things, group kind of things occurring. Our library does a fabulous job accommodating as much of that as they can with very limited space. So the reason for our moving forward on this is that we realize where we are in 2021 and want to get into the 21st century library design. Those things, a current facility would need natural lighting, open spaces, flexible furnishings, power outlets, and Wi-Fi access everywhere. and wide range of individual and small group spaces and off-street parking. So those are the things that we aspire to have that we currently do not have.
So looking back at the last 20 years, there's been a whole host of consultants, architects, studies, public meetings. At the end of the day, we don't have a new library yet. There really isn't much to show for the last 20 years. Over time, stakeholders become fatigued. They say, hey, I went to a meeting 5 years ago. Why do I want to go to another one? And eventually they lose interest in the project. At the same time, if you look back in the last 20 years, how many other communities have built new libraries or they've had additions or renovations completed? There's quite a few. Looking at the community as a whole, the community continues to grow. The need for a new library isn't going away. Meanwhile, the cost of construction continues to go up. If you've tried to purchase lumber in the past year, just the price of materials in the past year have skyrocketed. There's also fundraising fatigue in the community. There's all kinds of worthwhile projects and organizations. And if you talk to a local business owner, they'll tell you someone comes in almost every day or at least every week looking for a donation. And they're all worthwhile projects, but there's that fatigue that sets in from a business owner. COVID-19 and obviously the economic impact that we've seen adds to that fundraising fatigue. And there's no desire to take on millions of dollars of new debt either. To say, hey, let's not fundraise, let's just go and borrow a bunch of money and build a new library. I don't think anyone's looking for their property taxes to go up. So when we look, at the community as a whole, our needs are growing faster than our budget, which means that we have to be able to think differently and look for ways to innovate. We also recognize, growth is expensive. There's aging infrastructure, increasing costs for services, whether that's roads, parks, police, fire. The same thing for the school district, and the same thing that we see in our nonprofit groups too. They're serving more people, trying to do more with less. We already talked a little bit about the fundraising initiatives. And then looking, ahead, COVID-19 will have a lasting impact just on how we utilize our space, the importance of technology and having broadband internet access. Other needs in the community that we see, one is a demand for housing of all stages of life. It's difficult right now to find a house under $250,000. I've joked at our previous presentations, you could list your house today, you'll have an offer tomorrow, and yet you may not be able to find a house to move into for several months, just because of the supply and demand that we see right now. At the same time, the fair market price for a 2-bedroom apartment in Richmond is over $1,200 a month. And 43% of households in the city of Richmond are under that ALICE threshold, which stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. So these are families that are working full time, might be only earning $15 to $20 an hour, and have a hard time. They can't put down a sizable down payment for a house. At the same time, they don't want to pay $1,200 a month for an apartment. We have an aging population. There's limited availability and rising costs of childcare, and there's also renewed focus on revitalizing downtown and supporting local businesses. And hopefully that's a positive outcome from COVID, is that we've seen a renewed interest in helping support those local businesses and shopping local as opposed to driving out of town. So we wanted to highlight tonight public-private partnerships. A public-private partnership is a partnership between the government and a private or for-profit sector in the delivery of goods and services. There's all kinds of different delivery models and structures out there. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And really the purpose of a public-private partnership is to utilize the strengths, expertise, efficiencies, and resources of different stakeholders in sectors rather than just doing a standalone public project. And hopefully in the end, the final product exceeds what any one partner could do alone. In terms of mixed-use developments, this again is another terminology that some of you may have heard of. This is really a blend of different uses. This could be cultural, residential, commercial, all into one space. And really they function physically they're integrated together. You kind of have synergy in uses. There's a lot of benefits to mixed-use developments. Walkable neighborhoods, there's stronger character and a sense of place. There's also reduced distance between housing, work, retail, and different amenities. And really it kind of goes back to, some of you have heard that sooner or later, everything old is new again. Mixed-use developments aren't a new concept. This is really going back to really how a lot of communities started, where things were within walking distance. You walked a block down the street, you could go to the grocery store, you could, run different errands. And we're seeing that in a lot of communities that are reinvesting in their downtown. They want to make the downtown a gathering place and a place where you spend your day and where you don't have to travel miles out of town to purchase things. The mixed-use developments can be vertical or horizontal. This doesn't have to be a 6-story tall building. Oftentimes they're only 2 stories, or it can be 1 story even. It may all be just one level. It doesn't all have to be one building either. It can be viewed as a whole block development. So then, looking at libraries, I think this go to Vicky. I'm just talking about how public-private partnership and mixed-use developments apply to a library project.
Yep, so we were thinking as services have evolved and finances have become more limited, like Noah just described, libraries have become more willing in communities to consider non-traditional ways of partnering with facilities and shared spaces. Libraries have joined with private developers, nonprofit housing authorities, colleges and universities, perhaps in our case, WITC, government agencies and others to share land and buildings. So in 2021, we would hope that we might be able to re-envision the role of the library in the community. Libraries are no longer standalone brick buildings that serve as a repository for books, but instead, they are multi-purpose community spaces that have physical space in which the library is located. And we're hoping that this project would reflect that work.
We wanted to highlight just a couple of examples here in Wisconsin. One is in the city of Milwaukee. They've actually built 4 mixed-use libraries just in the past decade. The total project cost for those 4 libraries was $18 million. They have plans to construct 2 more. So obviously Milwaukee has several neighborhood libraries given the size of the city, but this is how they're doing all of their libraries. They're all mixed use. In their community, they have a condominium agreement. And so actually they own the space within the building, but the larger building itself is owned by a private property owner. And so actually it's contributing to the tax base. It's not just a standalone publicly owned property. And they find that there's cost savings, again, there's shared parking, shared utilities. Really there's building out their space in the facility itself. And it meets additional needs in the community. In some cases, Milwaukee has condos, they have apartments, they may have a commercial space. So there's other uses that help revitalize that neighborhood. In the case of Platteville, Wisconsin, a little smaller community, this is more comparable to the size of New Richmond. They built a 22,000 square foot library as part of a public-private partnership. They took out no new debt, and their entire fundraising for the project was $600,000. And you might think, well, how does that happen? Well, in terms of their financing, it was a $16.7 million project. In this case, they're actually leasing the space from a private developer. They have an agreement that they lease the space for 7 years. After 7 years, the developer donates the space back to the library as a tax write-off. And so in their case, they're able to use tax increment financing for the city's portion of the financing rather than taking out new debt. So again, not to say that one of these 2 models is the answer or the solution, but hopefully, kind of changes the narrative, or at least helps us think about, some other options that we can look at, other than just a standalone public facility. And then the next slide just has some photos of their library space, and it's a beautiful project. There are other new models and innovative collaborations. There's communities where instead of building a separate library for their college or their school, it's one community library. And so even in the case of the school district, the libraries at the school are just considered branches of the larger library. Or instead of a college having, this is the college library and this is the city library, they share one space. There's other collaborations between, after school programming. There's somewhere they actually have a licensed childcare facility right in the building. So that if you're taking classes or going to a speaker, you can actually have your kids supervised safely. And you see that similar at the center right now. You go to work out, there's a spot where you can have your kids supervised. So could it work in New Richmond? There's tremendous potential, and we'd like to have the ability to further explore it. When you look at the current site, it's a perfect site for a library. It's just under 4 acres. It's flat. There's utilities. It's only a block off of the downtown, so it's within walking distance of Mary Park, the schools, the center. There's a lot of different partners in our community with needs, whether it's in the public, private, or nonprofit sectors. And it's a growing community. These needs aren't going to go away. Want to go to Vicky then? I'm sorry.
So for this, we're kind of preaching to the choir, and I apologize for that, but we're wondering, could this work in New Richmond? Now, remember, we've had 3 different audiences. We started with the school board, the library board, and now coming back to visit with you. So when you look at, we already had shovels. We were being proactive long ago, but that didn't get very far. So this is why we're kind of jump starting now, hoping that we can pull off some of those restrictions, like Mr. Schaefer said, and maybe move forward in a kind of a non-traditional, think out of the box sort of way. But we have had a lot of engagement. We've had contact with the architect. Well, we've done all those bullet points up there that, you've all been part of that journey for the most part too. So on to the next slide. So this is our visionary slide here. So what if we could build a beautiful modern library? What if what if we met additional community needs while we did our library? And what if that helped revitalize our downtown and grow the tax base in the long term? We think those are great goals. And while we're doing that, in the process, we would hope to minimize new overlapping debt, minimize increases in property taxes, and minimize the need to fundraise, none of which we have found to be very productive or fruitful, and certainly won't in the middle of the Colback. So that's our ask, I guess.
I'm sure we'd all like to see be able to do what Platteville did and see 0 cost to the city or to the district, or at least minimize that. But to summarize, the purpose of libraries have changed. They are now multi-purpose facilities, and this building will have to reflect that. And it's a reflection on the future of the city. A public-private partnership offers several potential benefits, as Noah pointed out, and we believe it should be further explored. It is forward-thinking. It's not brand new. It's not pie in the sky. It is what libraries have come, or what libraries we've come to know. The community has had several additional needs and limited funds. We know that. And it's been over 20 years that this conversation has been going on. And we're here to partner and work together to see if we can't get it done. The elephant in the room, of course, I'll go back to the 3-legged stool. We need to have value, capacity, and support to make this happen. I think we all can agree in this room there is value. I think there's tremendous support. It's just we continue to re-engage the stakeholders and the community and getting support to move this along and get the energy. But what we are lacking, obviously, is capacity, and that is the funding source to make that happen. Like most, we don't know what the budget's going to be. We don't know who's going to pay for it, who our partners are going to be, what the timeline is, what the building's going to look like, what are the commitments, what are the committees going to look like. As I said at the very beginning, there are more questions than answers, and we are just at the point where we want the nod from our partners to move forward to explore these other funding options. The timeline, as we've already said, we've been before, this is the 3rd of 3 boards to bring this idea forward. And we'd really like to see what's possible in moving forward and further discussion. So I guess this is the very, very first step. There's a lot of work to be done. I know for a fact that conversations are taking place among members in the community about what kind of interest is out there. So the next steps theoretically are going to be trying to do some type of a needs assessment, see who is out there that would be interested in investing in this or in developing this and looking at this partnership. And then from there, we would have those conversations and bring those back to obviously the school board. Those of you know that the school board has the final say on whether what we bring to them and what the plan is acceptable to the board. So I think they're willing to listen. As I said, I'm only one vote, and we're here to represent the entire New Richmond School District, and it's not just the city of New Richmond. So, thank you.
Somebody,
Yeah.
any closing statements or
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, I guess with that, just wanted to see if there were any comments from the council. And, you know, like we said, we've spoken to the other two groups. I think have a direction that they'd like to see us look into this more, see if there's local partners. But I guess would open the floor to Mayor Horn and any of the council if you'd like to weigh in or say a few words.
Yeah, obviously fundraising has kind of changed, and I think the school found out about that with the stadium and everything else. It's just the money just isn't there. The big donors aren't there anymore. So it's going to take something like this, a public-private partnership, to make something happen. And it's not creating the wheel. It's, they're doing this in other communities, as you guys have found out. Let's see what the possibilities are.
Yeah, I would agree with Mayor Horn. This is Alderman Kraft. I'm just really, really appreciative of the school board's willingness to revisit the issue in the land agreement that we had, kind of understanding the challenges and opportunities that we're facing, especially with the pandemic and just the length of time that it's been going on. But, the advocacy that the library board has done, the support that the council has shown, that the school district has shown is great. I know that there is a strong willingness to move this project forward if we can gather the right partners. And I'm all for it, to seeing, who we could look to for these public-private partnership ideas. I know that, one idea may be to bring in the VFW. I know that they're really wanting to build their own facility at Freedom Park. But this may be an opportunity to create a space that is accessible for multiple groups of people, looks at that public-private partnership, leverages funds from multiple sources, could bring in some much-needed veteran services, senior center, conference room availability. There's just so much that could happen at this one location, and just very hopeful that the school board, I'm just, like I said, very grateful that we've looked at kind of potentially waiving some of those limitations that had originally been in place. Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Brian, for all of your work. It's really appreciated.
And this is Alderman Montello, and I'm supportive of what the presentation has been tonight. Noah, I think this question goes to you. What do you think the next steps looks like? I mean, obviously, we don't have a concept, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think you talked about that. We don't know what this public-private is going to look like in terms of what the use is going to be for the private part. But I'm just curious, how do you see the next steps proceeding to where we can get to a point where we actually got a proposal to talk about?
Yeah, and I think one of the first steps is looking local right here in our community to see what local partners or needs are there. To Brian's point, kind of a mini needs analysis. And I'll throw out some names. I mean, I know Alderman Kraft, mentioned the VFW. It might be Five Belows Food Shelf. It might be the school district itself. It might be WITC. It might be Westfields. It might be the center. There's a lot of different groups right here in New Richmond that may have needs and may be interested in being a part of this project. I think at the end of the day, the main focus has to be the library. So whatever those uses are, it needs to be compatible with that space. It needs to make sure that we're serving the entire community, the city and the townships, and starting those conversations. But I think this has the potential to gain momentum very quickly. I would see us potentially next week already starting to meet with some of these local groups, and do some brainstorming and talk about, what could be, rather than, as we started this, looking at what can't go there. but really starting this conversation and starting to get people to visualize, what could happen here. So I see us having this, and I believe for the school board meeting going forward, they plan to have this as a standing agenda item because this is a priority, and I think it says a lot that that Brian is here this evening on behalf of the school board and Vicky as well. I think we all realize this is a project that we want to see get done. It's been 20 years of talk and very little results, and it would be easy, I think, during COVID-19 to say, oh, we just have to put this on the back burner. But I think the potential's there. We can identify the right partners, but I think that's where I think the project starts, Mike, is really looking at starting local and within to see who's interested, and then maybe looking at thinking outside the box too. Is there a private developer that could be interested? Are there, and starting the conversation of what's compatible, who's interested, who wants to be a part of this. Then it kind of comes to, okay, what might that actually look like? I know I'm a very visual person. I want to see, okay, show me a sketch of what that could look like on the site. When we start talking, if some of these groups say this, we need this many feet, or we have this wish for our facility, how might that actually start to look on paper in a picture? And then I think it's really getting feedback from the community. Is this something the community is going to support? Is this something that the school district supports? Is it something the library board and the city council support? So I think there's a lot of moving pieces all at once, to be honest, but I think a lot of it starts with those small presentations and conversations with some of our local organizations and possible partners.
Mike, following up on Noah's too, I think Brian alluded to this earlier, but I think Brian called us the fire starters at one meeting. So it was we just took one from each board and put our heads together because none of us wants to go to more meetings than we have to. But, we might be at the point now this is kind of a information giving up to this point, and now we're information getting. So if at that point we need other people or ideas, or I think this is the time when if somebody down at the next door cafe, I don't even know if that's open during COVID, but if somebody's sitting down there having coffee and comes up with an idea, we're kind of in the soliciting part right now, where we want ideas. So part of the reason that we went to these three boards is for transparency. The other part is we don't know where we're going next. That's what we need to find out. And if anyone in any of the boards wants to jump on board, or anyone else to support what we're doing for those next steps, we're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Noah. And thank you, Brian, and everybody who's worked on this. I think really the question that's been in the back of my mind is this idea that you could have a developer come in and say, hey, I got an idea, let's do this. And I'm not saying as a proponent of that necessarily. The idea is that trying to get folks together to kind of have something boil to the surface as it would. And it's interesting, Vicki, what you just said about more meetings. I could imagine there could be a lot of that. So again, it's just an acknowledgement of the difficulty of the process. I think it's the only way. I think it's the best way for library to happen. And it's just a matter of kind of knowing how we can attack that challenge, not to be answered tonight, but that's the question that's good in the back of my mind.
And your feedback is welcome, as it is from anyone else as we go along this journey.
And I just wanted to say thanks to Brian and Vicki for your hard work in the past, and your probable hard work in the future. It's going to be something that the entire community needs, including the school board. Brian, I just got a question for you real quick. Do you see any long-term or short-term needs for the school district to want to be part of something like this as far as space goes?
Well, I think space is always an issue. We're approaching capacity in a few of the buildings, and I know just in talking to Vicki that there are some special needs for smaller spaces, perhaps, for some of the education that's going on. So, obviously, the school board has given given the city a great opportunity and a great piece of property to do something great. So I think there's a thought there that the school district has really done their part, but we've all acknowledged that there are still going to be needs of the district as a partner, whether it's renting space or having permanent space. I'm just kind of spitballing it, but yeah, we know that there's going to be.
Okay, just curious. I've talked to some other people on the school side of it, and they kind of came up with that same conclusion that there might be some short-term or long-term needs for the school district, that this place or this space could come in handy, and something we need to think about.
I know this will come as a surprise to everyone in this room, but I tend to talk a lot when I'm out in public. And I brought that up to a number of people, just the whole concept of this. I've yet to get a negative comment.
Good.
Everyone that I vetted it in front of has been really positive. And in fact, I brought it up to Jean Needham, and she practically jumped in my pocket and said, "Can we sign up? Can we put the food pantry in there now?" And I said, "Well, I think we're still looking, but so I haven't heard." I mean, I invite people to have conversations about things like this, because when I sit on a board, I like to think that I'm communicating with people and because I'm on the library board, I want to hear what other people have to say. And so when I've had conversations with people, it's been very positive.
Speaking about Jean Needham, my wife mostly has been involved with some things at Five Loaves, and what they pay in rent to basically give people in need food is kind of a shame. And I think someplace, somewhere, there's got to be something that we can do as a city, as residents and the school district, to get people help that really, really need help. And I don't think them raising money or them trying to get by with an amount of rent that they pay, it's kind of sad, but if we can help out, I think that'd be a great opportunity for the city to do.
On the other end of it, though, in order to get the library building, we do need revenue generating things.
Yes.
That was kind of the drive of this too, because we don't want to tax, and we don't, we need revenue generating.
Yep.
So are we going to have this on the agenda for next month? Just kind of a status, what steps have been taken in the last month?
Yeah, so already I would plan for the end of this week. You already see it. The council would have an update for me, just kind of on immediate next steps. But this would be a standing item, I think, on a monthly basis, so that we see what the progress is and what the process is moving forward, and for the public at home to know, okay, where are we at for the purpose of transparency. And if people that are, read about this in the paper, or they watch it on cable TV tonight, there may be ideas that we haven't even thought of that may come out as well. So I see this being a standing item, and I think the school board has indicated the same, that they want to see progress being made, and we don't want to have to come back to the school board a year from now and say, hey, we want another 1-year extension.
You bet.
We don't know what our plan is. Another year has gone by. We want to see results at the end of the day.
All right. Any other questions for anybody? Thank you, guys.
for your
Thank you
time.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Item 7.2, the COVID-19 update. I believe Dr. Tenner is out in the lobby.
Yeah, so we, Mayor Horton and City Council, we have a COVID-19 update. We thought this was just timely. As some of you may recall, Dr. Tenner attended the City Council work session, I believe maybe in October, early November. And we thought we've gotten a lot of questions here about, the vaccine. What are we currently seeing, right here on the ground? And we thought it'd be benefit to have Dr. Tenner say a few words on what he's seen here at locally at Westfields. I know Chief Yelich has been a part of some meetings as well in terms of, the rollout of the vaccine and what we may see over the coming weeks and months ahead. So no item is needed, or no action is needed, I'm sorry, for the COVID-19 update. It is just an update. So we're just getting spot
We'll
here.
give you
Ready?
the option. You can stand if you want at the podium, or you can sit. It's your choice.
But we appreciate Dr. Center taking time out of his busy schedule here today. I believe coming straight from work, so really appreciate you for taking some time out of your evening. If you'd like to just provide a short update on kind of COVID-19 here in New Richmond and what we're seeing.
Sure, my privilege. Again, I'm speaking for myself, and I had planned on talking to our administration before I came in just to see if they had any messages. I wasn't actually expecting to work today. It was quite busy, and we had somebody call in sick. So, yeah. So it's been a really incredibly busy 2 months. I think we look at St. Croix County. Yeah, you guys probably already showed the statistics, but it looks like around very close to 7,000 cases in St. Croix County to date. Can you hear me okay? About 7,000 cases to date. It's 6,900, 80 or something like that. With almost the majority of them coming in the past 2.5, 3 months. I think the hugest spike that we were having was early November was our highest caseloads. And it started to come down just before Thanksgiving, and then there was another little spike, not quite as high. And it seems to be going down a little bit, kind of expecting a little bit of a spike. It looks like in the initial numbers, they're preliminary. So at the time, I think I spoke to you last, I should have looked at my calendar. I don't remember when that was, but seemed like we were having 40, 50, going up to 80 cases. It was just rapidly going up. The latest days, it looks like it's somewhere between 20 to 40. But again, the preliminary data, it's coming down. So I would run some guesstimate numbers. These are just off the top of my head. I don't have any great data. We know that half everybody that gets COVID is asymptomatic, has absolutely no symptoms. So people who have symptoms, majority of them probably get tested because it just kind of makes sense, and it seems like what most people do. But I've seen so many people, collectively in our urgent care for sure, at Westfields who don't want to get tested. They're really resistant to getting tested, even though by all accounts they probably have COVID, but they just refuse to get tested. I was like, okay. Looks like you've got a virus, assume you have COVID. All these instructions, we can't really report that to the public health as a COVID test or COVID positive patient. We don't know if they have COVID or not. We can only hope that they don't go to work, but most of them don't want to get tested because they don't want to go to work. They don't want to miss work. They don't want their family members to have to be on quarantine. So I have no idea what the percentage of that is. I would assume easily there's I think 7,000 cases to date in St. Croix County. I would be shocked if it wasn't a total of 14,000 who have had it. There are about 90,000 people in St. Croix County. So just rough math. I mean, we don't know how many people have had it. We don't know what the number of people who have asymptomatic, but if you figure roughly 15, probably 1,000 have had it. We've got about 90,000 people. It's about 1 in 6. About 18%, 20% may have had it. We don't have any real good numbers, but we do know it's at least probably 10%. And we're still very susceptible to COVID at this time until we get vaccines. And I'm hoping everybody's doing probably a good job at masking, and that's why we are seeing the numbers go down. And I think the people who are anti-masking, probably by now the majority of them have had it, whether they know it or not would be my guess. And the virus is just meeting less willing victims. But I think if we all threw our masks away right now, we'd see another spike. And that's what the national experts are saying. So, and I think the death rate in St. Croix County is about 34, 36, something like that. So those are just numbers that you can pick off the web. And I don't have any special insight into that. other than we've been very busy. And we have not had to divert, or we've been pretty lucky with staffing so far that we're managing. And I think numbers are getting better in the cities. And we might be being helped quite a bit by the Minnesota recommendations, their numbers going down. So, we can still see, I think, more. And I would just, follow the national recommendations from the CDC at this point, that if we were to abandon our masks, it would be a disaster. So we really want to try to get as many people to make it, especially until all of our senior citizens, anyone over the age of 65, anyone with chronic diabetes, chronic heart disease, chronic kidney disease, until they've had a chance to have the vaccine, I can't emphasize how important it is that we continue to mask for their sake. So I think hospital patient or hospital employees, again, I don't know the percentage that have had vaccine their first dose, probably over half. We got a message from the hospital that this week was our last chance to get it, and I think possibly through Tuesday or Wednesday. And then, because, that's that. If we haven't had it then, we kind of are going back into the next aliquot of vaccines. I had my first vaccine. I got it the first day that we were able to give vaccines, which was New Year's Eve day. And vaccine comes in, you try to get everybody who's, all the ER docs, all the nurses in the ER, all the medical surgical unit nurses and doctors, because they're all dealing with COVID patients that are admitted firsthand. And you thaw the vaccine, and then you wander around and try to get all the other health employees to make sure because you have to use it, otherwise it's gone. And so I think that's why the rollout is so difficult, because you get the vaccine and you have to make sure if you're going to thaw it, you have to have a system to get all those vaccines into somebody's arm before they're wasted. And so, everybody's working on trying to get systems of volunteers, of people who can come in and again, that 1A, 1B situation. The last information that I saw, and again, I haven't talked directly to anybody about when we hope to start vaccinating the public, is end of February, beginning of March. And again, maybe we're trying to set low expectations, and we'll be happy if we meet them. We're kind of at the mercy of get vaccine, give vaccine to as many people as we can immediately. So, and then I'm not familiar with the public health, where they're at. I think through St. Croix County, I imagine it's coming mostly from the hospitals that have the facility to keep the vaccine refrigerated frozen at the very cold temperatures. Public health probably can fill you in more if there are other sites giving the vaccine.
I think with that, if Mayor Horn or the council, if you have questions you'd like to ask Dr. Tenner, again, what we're seeing here, questions on the vaccine, we thought it would just be a benefit for those watching at home, just to have so much in the news, information, misinformation, just to have some, a local source here on the ground. So any questions you might have to pose to him.
Dr. Tenner, this is Alderman Montello. Thanks for speaking to us tonight. Appreciate the work that you and the folks at Westfields are doing on behalf of the health of the community. It's interesting. I had a couple questions for you. And please, I'm not trying to put you in the seat of being the national COVID coordinator. And so really just your understanding, but it's interesting. You've been vaccinated. So you had the first vaccine. Have you had the second dose yet?
No, my second dose, our vaccine that we're giving is the Moderna vaccine. And again, my assumption is because we probably only have the freezing equipment for the Moderna vaccine, because the Pfizer vaccine requires quite a bit colder, very special unit, and that might only be available in our research hospitals, big hospitals like Regions Lab, where they have central labs. But ours has been the Moderna vaccine, and the second dose of that vaccine comes out you're supposed to get it 4 weeks after the first dose.
It's
So
reported that-
even, well, I was just going to ask you, so even if you had had the second dose, something tells me you'd still be wearing that mask. And I just think it's, and this really goes to a couple of questions, or just the question going into the future. Okay, we've got a vaccine. Some folks think, hey, this is just all going to be over right around the corner. Just based on stuff I read, I'm not a medical person. That sure doesn't sound like the case to me. And in fact, it sounds like, social distancing and masking anyhow. And then those general hygiene things, still going to be in order even after the vaccine becomes more prevalent. I understand you don't know the timing, but just kind of based on what you understand when vaccines are given, the fact that the scientists, the medical people don't really know what happens with the, you could be, is it 95%? I guess it depends. So you're maybe, the 5% of the people, or a person could be who's gotten the vaccine can still get the coronavirus. When do you think you could imagine that these public practices we adopted, last March, we might be able to start loosening those based on vaccine availability, this thing called herd immunity? What is your thoughts about that?
That's a really good question, and I'll give you my best stab at my perception without any real good. We can't prove any of this stuff, but the vaccines are at 95% effectiveness, 90 to 95%, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine. That's really good for a vaccine, and so we're all very excited. And that's for people, once they've had the vaccine, not getting it for at least 2 to 4 months after the vaccine. Of course, the farther out we go, the longer we'll know how long that effectiveness is. The key is to really make sure that everybody who's at high risk for getting this disease and getting severely ill or dying has had the vaccine. We're all doing this for them. There are some kids that get multi-system inflammatory disease, and they're incredibly ill, but that's not common. So in general, the vaccines were not studied in under 18-year-olds. So we're really looking at rolling out the vaccine to all of our elderly people, all the people at high risk, trying to get them vaccinated, and then, the run-of-the-mill, otherwise healthy young adult, get them vaccinated when we can, if they're willing to let us vaccinate them, so that we can, again, try to get closer to herd immunity, either people having had the disease or having been vaccinated for it. And once that's done, I think, we're going to start gradually opening up. And I'm sure individuals will start gradually opening up. People get the vaccine and they're like, I'm fine, I've had the vaccine, don't worry about it. They'll burn their masks. And the rest of us will continue wearing the mask. If for no other reason, I'm going to continue wearing this mask when I'm in public, because people won't know that I've had the vaccine. People don't know that maybe somebody's already had the disease. And so I'm going to keep wearing this mask in solidarity for people, for all of my fellow citizens who haven't had the vaccine, until we declare this pandemic over. I'm a healthcare provider, so it's a little different motivation, but it's part of it's to set an example. I'm just lucky. It was the best Christmas present anybody could have ever given me, that I got that on Christmas Eve day. Again, that was the first day we actually started giving vaccines here at Westfields. But yeah, I think it's gonna, people already have COVID fatigue, and trying to keep everybody keeping the masks on until, at least at a very minimum, until all of our elderly citizens and everybody at risk have had a chance to have either had both doses of the vaccine or had a chance to refuse it. And if they've had a chance to refuse it and they don't want it, kind of on their own at some point. The world has to move on. I'm hoping we'll be at some point where the world moves on. We don't need the masks anymore. I don't know if that answered the question. Mike?
It did basically. Thank you. It just really this idea that we're certainly months away, and really, I know that the council is going to be talking about parade permits here for events yet this year. And again, based on that, could we still be talking about the coronavirus being, a real health threat 6 months from now?
Boy, I hope not. Will we be able to get, you figure there's 330 million people in the United States. A lot of them have had coronavirus. People can get it again. We don't know how long the immunity from naturally getting the virus is. So once somebody's had the virus, how long till they can get it again? The vaccine, while it's 95% from getting any coronavirus in this short term, the studies have been going on, it's virtually 100% from getting severe COVID disease. So even though you might get it, you can still spread it to somebody who might then get very ill. But it seems to be close to 100% preventing severe illness. So that's really good. It's anybody's guess if that's going to be rolled into a yearly flu vaccine or don't know. I do know that the newer strain of coronavirus, it appears that the vaccine is equally good for that. It just appears that there's a change in the spike protein, which binds to the ACE receptor in the lungs. It seems to be about 50 to 70%, 1.5 to 1.7 times more infectious than the kind of corona vaccine, the coronaviruses that have been circulating in the United States, the COVID-19 viruses. They mutate very quickly, but they're tiny little mutations. This is the first major one we've seen it act differently. And I've heard reports that it seems to be a little more contagious in kids as well. But I looked for some data this weekend and couldn't find anything really good on that. But that should be covered by the vaccine, though. And if somebody's already had the COVID-19, I would think they're going to have excellent immunity towards any major variants that have appeared. And that seems to be what the experts are saying that I've seen and read on.
Anybody? Excuse me, go ahead.
First of all, thanks for being here, Doctor. Really appreciate your information. First question is just, can you help me paint a picture of the next month, month and a half, 2 months of, I know who we want to get first, but who's second, who's third, how does that work? What are the logistics of I have an 83-year-old dad at home. He lives at home. He just, he's fine. He tries not to go out much, but he's my dad, so he's going to go if he wants to. So how are these people going to be reached? How are we going to get, is there going to be an end up of a sign up? Is Westfield's going to say, okay, we've got everybody that's willing to take it now. What's next? Are we going to get information through the mail? How are we going to be informed that this is now stand in line, your public is ready to go. We've got everybody that needs it or wants it. We've talked to the people that refuse it. How's that whole process going to work? And maybe that's not even something we know right now.
Yeah, I definitely don't know. I think there's probably a plan at the hospital. Those plans change very quickly. So there was a plan. We were all supposed to wait until we got an email in our inbox for the staff of the hospital. And then once we got the email, we were going to be able to schedule an appointment to come in and get our vaccine so that and of course, once it shows up and they get it the day before Christmas Eve and you got, I forget if it was 70 or 100 doses, they had to make a decision. Are they going to bomb and give them now and get things going, or are they going to wait till Monday following Christmas? And they're like, no, let's thaw them and get them out right now.
Yeah.
Which I think is the right decision.
It's definitely the right decision.
And just, and so it ended up, they sent out an email to all the people that work directly with COVID patients in the hospital, in the ER. Of course, a lot of those people weren't reading their work emails. It's their work emails. It's not their home emails.
Right.
If you're not at work, you're gonna, if you didn't work that day, and then phone, and then they went and grabbed people off the floors and said, "We're giving it." One of my colleagues said, "Hey, they're giving it," and I dropped everything and I ran in. Because I'm swabbing people and getting coughed on every day, and and I think I got the next to the last one that day. So
what I'm asking is that what's next?
So
do we
going
know
forward,
what's next?
I know they have a plan, and part of it
Okay.
will be working with public health and probably the city, and trying to make sure that all of our
At risk?
our patients who are in community dwelling assisted living, to make sure they all get it next. They're at the 1B. I don't know all the 1B stages, but they're going to work with publicity and the docs and try to get that all out. I'm sure they're going to be working. I think there's a coalition going on.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is there's people that aren't like my dad. I mean, if it doesn't knock on his door, he's not going to know.
I'm sure it's going to be disappointingly so, and you've already heard the controversy that the federal government is, sending out first doses, and they're holding back on second doses to give them out at the timely manner. And there's going to be Great Britain, they said, no, we're just getting it all out and get everybody one dose.
Get everybody one.
I should be 50% protected after my first dose, after the second dose by 2 or 3 days after I'm 95% of, so is it better to get everybody one dose and then wait for the manufactured product to come out?
Right.
Of course, all of a sudden, the studies that they did are out the window because we had no idea
No.
at that point. So those are difficult policy questions. We don't even know where that's going on federal
Okay.
level.
I was just curious, Craig, can you help me out with any of that?
Can you hear me all right on the microphone? Okay. So I've been in some meetings with public health. I don't know how I got invited, but I also got invited to a meeting with Dr. Fauci, which was interesting. But at any rate, I did send Noah some information today from County Public Health that will answer a lot of your questions. I think
Okay.
we're going to try to work on putting that on the city's website as well. But basically, what I understand from public health is that they're following the CDC guidelines. They're doing the 1A, the 1B. And so far, I did just get an email here a few minutes ago while we were actually sitting in here. I know the mayor and I had this conversation where law enforcement was going to fall on this. And I just got information that law enforcement will now be able to get the vaccination starting on the 18th of January in Wisconsin. Fire and EMS are in that 1B category as well. So they should be getting vaccinated very soon. And then on the county website, there's actually a rollout that kind of shows the progression of when like your dad would be able to get it through public health.
Okay.
Is probably going to be the normal route for them to go, which they're going to be doing at the services center. And I think I know they're meeting every day to try to figure out that rollout, but I don't think they have the actual kind of time frame. There's a general guideline on the information I sent Noah today. So I'd really encourage you to watch that county website.
Okay.
And then I think the biggest thing is making sure that we're advocating for our parents.
Yeah,
The ones that aren't on the internet, the ones that aren't looking at that. I think it's going to be up to our generation and the younger generation to make sure that our parents are in the know what to do. So really advocate for him.
That's why I brought it up. I'll find out, or I don't.
Right. And
It's not a
think
big deal to
that's,
me, but
to send out a mailing to everybody and not knowing, what their age is and what category they're going to fall in and their medical history and what puts them ahead of other people. I think that's going to be a dicey process from the sounds of things.
Yeah.
But really keep an eye on the county website, public health.
Okay.
And then I'll do my best to work with the city as I get information to make sure that we're getting that out on the city's website as well.
Okay, good.
To really try to make sure that we're getting everybody in the know that we can.
Yeah, anything we can get on the Richmond website will be incredibly helpful. Because like I say, if it doesn't knock on my dad's door, he's not going to know.
Right. And that's why I think it's up to us to advocate for that generation to make sure, in this day of technology, if they're not using it,
you know, we
Yeah.
need to make sure that they're in the know and get the information. So, yeah, thank you. Any other questions for me or?
Yeah, Craig,
Unless
before you leave, and I'm assuming you don't have an answer to this, but maybe this has got to go to our HR director or even the city attorney. I'm curious, municipal employees, for example, your officers, what if you have an officer who declines the vaccine? Can the city require it? Has anybody looked into that question yet?
I have started to look into that exact question. You know, for us with the union situation that we have as law enforcement, if it's tied to employment, it's a part of collective bargaining, if I'm understanding it right. That if we're going to mandate that, we'd have to bargain that through our CBA. But Nick is here; he probably has a better idea on all city employees and what we can and can't mandate. I don't know that the government even has kind of an idea yet on what that looks like. So I'll leave that one to Nick, I guess.
Yeah, and the answer is going to be it depends, like everything else. There are a whole series of questions that we're going to have to deal with as part of a mandatory vaccine policy. If we look to move in that direction, there has to be compliance with the ADA. There has to be compliance with religious rights. There are also potential exemptions for obviously medical conditions. So it's not as simple as saying, can we mandate or can we not mandate? And it's an issue that we'll continue to work with Sarah on to make sure that we have a policy that makes sense. Obviously, we want to encourage it. But I think that the doctor can probably speak to the fact that there still is among some groups some skepticism about vaccinations, and there's some unwillingness in the public for vaccination. And so it's going to be an interesting challenge as to how employers, both in the public and the private setting, continue to encourage their employees to get vaccinated, and how you deal with some of these tricky, both legal and ethical issues regarding vaccinations.
To be continued. Does anybody else have any questions? So I'm glad, Chief, that the police were included. As our discussion this morning, it looked like they were not included to be in the 1B. So I had texted Senator Staffschultz, still waiting to hear, but it's good news that the
Yeah,
officers
that's the
are.
information I got as Wisconsin Public Health today came out and said that law enforcement will now be involved in that 1B category. So,
yep. Thanks for that update.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Tanner.
Thank you, Doctor.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I wish I had some better crystal ball.
Some magic
Don't we
potions
all?
here to get us through this.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Item 7.3 is limited services in municipal buildings due to COVID-19.
Mayor Horn and City Council, this has been a kind of a standing item on our meeting agenda the last couple of months. Just wanted to give a brief overview of kind of our current operations and where we see ourselves going over the next few weeks. So currently, we have the libraries had reduced hours and doing curbside pickup. They see continuing to do that in the coming weeks. That process has been working well. Our front lobby at the fire hall is currently closed to the public. Speaking with the fire chief, he's supportive of continuing to do that. They don't see a lot of foot traffic coming into the building anyways, and we feel that as a safety measure for the firefighters, keeping that closed. At the police department, they're wrapping up the installation and training for their new intercom system, which will help minimize that close contact with the office staff and folks that are coming in. And in speaking with the police chief, we see a benefit to having the front lobby open for the drug take back program and some limited services. And so with that in mind, we do plan to reopen the front lobby of the police department beginning Monday, January 18th. And then here at the Civic Center, we've had the front lobby just open by appointment only. Right now, we're kind of in the middle of tax season. So we've been encouraging folks to
pay online, to use the drop boxes outside the buildings. And for the most part, that's been working very well. And for those who still want to come and pay in person, they can make an appointment and do that. And the nice thing for when they do that, especially a lot of the folks that are doing that are more of that at-risk population. They know that when they come in, they're not waiting in line. There's not a crowded lobby. That it's it's a safe environment. So speaking with the staff here at the Civic Center, we have tax collection running through the end of this month. We would plan to continue to keep the lobby open just by appointment only. Looking ahead and based on seeing the downward trend that we're seeing in COVID cases, as of right now, and again we would continue to monitor this, but we would plan to reopen City Hall kind of to our normal operating hours beginning on February 8th, open to the public. And this would also coincide with early voting because we will have an election already in February, which Michelle highlighted in her memo on the consent agenda. So that's kind of where we're at and kind of where we see ourselves going over the next few weeks leading up to the February council meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And the chief is here as well if you have questions on the police department.
No, I have in the minutes, if the council meeting is on the 8th, then would the lobby open on the 9th? Or would we keep the lobby opening on Monday, the 8th? Would just be a point for someone to clarify.
Yeah. As of right now, we would plan to open on the 8th. I think beginning that Monday, allowing that extra day for early voting, and again, trying to spread out that early voting time. And again, assuming we continue on this downward trend, which of course we hope to see, we'll continue to monitor it, but we would plan to reopen officially on Monday, the 8th.
Last month, excuse me, last month when we were talking about this, we were sitting at about 2,400 active cases in St. Croix County. The number that was given to us this morning is just under about 400. So it has dropped considerably in the last month. So I think February 8th is a great date to, hopefully that trend continues to drop and we'll be in good shape by then.
Yeah, and I think schools are starting to reopen. Hopefully we don't see any little spike here with that going on, but the schools have been doing a great job. Hopefully we don't see a spike after the holidays or travel and whatnot. But I think just a compliment, I think, to the staff and the community. I think we've, like Dr. Tenner said, we've seen that downward trend. We're not out of the clear yet, so I think that's important too, to continue to wear masks, social distance, do what we can, and but hopefully in February, as long as these trends continue, we'll be able to start to see some return to normal.
Anybody have any questions? All right, so the recommendation is for the City Hall to remain kind of as our current status of open by appointment only through February 8th. Is the recommendation from staff.
And then Chief, your front window, just that front part is going to be January 18th. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it come all the way up here. Could have just screamed yes.
So yeah, they did actually finish the installation. We are working on the training on our intercom system, which would really limit that. So people would be able to come into the front lobby, access the drug box, to drop off any unused prescription medications. They'd be able to pick up forms in our racks that are there, and things like that. We would still try to limit the window contact, but we have this intercom system now, so we can actually talk to people outside without having face-to-face contact or even approaching the window. Good. So I think that we're comfortable, at least giving that a try, and I think that will.
And
really
you're
help.
eligible for the vaccines on the same day, so that's good.
Right, they won't take effect for a few months after that, but yeah. So hopefully that would really limit our contact with the amount of kind of face-to-face. Granted, there's a piece of glass between our staff and the public to protect both, but I think the intercom system is really going to help cut down on that even more. So
great,
it'll be a good thing.
I just want to congratulate the city also. Not just the city of New Richmond, not the offices, the entire community. I very rarely go to any kind of public anything without people wearing 99% masks, whether it be a store or a restaurant or a grocery store or a school or I just, it's very rare where I see people in public settings not wearing a mask. I just congratulate them for that, and knowing that they're taking care of themselves and they're taking care of others. So that's a tribute to our community.
Mr. Mayor, are you looking for a motion?
I am.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the limited services municipal buildings due to COVID-19, how it's been laid out tonight. And just one correction, Mr. Mayor, I think you said through February 8th. It's to February 8th. If I understood Noah correctly, the plan would be to reopen City Hall on that Monday as opposed to going through Monday. Not a big deal to me, but I think I understand there was some early voting you wanted to accommodate, Noah. So,
Yes,
but I'll
that's
make
correct.
a motion that we approve them. I'll make a motion to approve the policy or this limited services plan as presented.
Right. There's a motion and a second to through opening on February 8th, City Hall, Fire Department on February 8th, Police Department on January 18th. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
All right, and that motion passes. Item 7.4 is the 2021 parade permit applications.
Mayor Horton, City Council, every January, we receive our parade permits for the calendar year. At the time that you see the two parades listed in your memo, since the agenda was posted, we did receive application for the St. Patrick's Day Parade as well. So we do have 3 parade permit requests on the St. Patrick's Day Parade, Fun Fest, and then the Hometown Holidays. We're not looking for action tonight to say yes or no to those events. Our recommendation from staff would be to proceed with submitting the paperwork to the DOT for those parades. But in the meantime, to really direct staff to work with the parade organizers, so working with organizers of the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Chamber of Commerce, to look at and also work with our public health officials and look at, is it safe to have these events? What type of measures would maybe have to be put in place if we were going to do these? And I think for the St. Patrick's Day Parade, bringing that to the work session in January, obviously they need time to plan if this is going to go on or not. But we haven't even had the conversation yet with them, about what they'd be proposing to do. And I don't know, Chief Yelich, if you have anything you'd want to add to that. Obviously, you work most closely with the parade permit applications themselves, but I think it's a little premature today to say yes or no, to Fun Fest or to some of these events. But obviously, they need to know in terms of scheduling bands and events and those other components that go into it. So we want to be proactive but also collaborative and working with them. We don't want it to just be yes or no. Talk to the school district, talk to Steve Massey, talk to the public health. Is it going to be realistic to do these events? And if it is, are there certain measures that we'd have to put in place, to help, give that extra security or safety? So with that, I don't know, Chief, if you have any comments you'd like to add.
And what I'd throw out to the chief is, Noah made the comment of realistically. I think one of the things we have to look at is how realistically we can, for the safety of the police officers during these events, especially looking at the first one, St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Yeah.
Could it be put on realistically keeping the police safe?
Right. And
Knowing
I think,
that people have the chance to attend or not attend, but the police don't.
Right. And I think that's the big question is as I just found out a few minutes ago that, the earliest we're going to be able to get our vaccinations for police is going to be on the 18th of January. Depending on what dose it is, it's another 28 days, which puts us out into, the end of February. And then I guess from what I've
learned from the meetings that I've been on, I don't know if Dr. Tenner said it here today, but then there's a period of time, 2 to 3 weeks after your second dose before you actually have, you know, the antibodies or whatever built up to have some sort of immunity, which puts us probably beyond March 17th before, if everybody goes on schedule, to where we would feel comfortable doing that. And that's if everybody were to get it. So, you know, we've got to get our parade permit in. The state likes them 2 months in advance. So, you know, I've only got till about the 17th of this month to do the application for St. Patty's Day. And we can certainly do that. You know, it doesn't cost the city any money to put in for that permit. But, you know, I guess I would go into it with some great reluctancy at this point to bring that many people together. I did have a conversation with public health about St. Patrick's Day Parade. And Kelly Engen, the director there, said that she would be opposed to anything that early, that there's certainly not going to be the amount of vaccinations to have the public safe and to bring that many people, even in an outdoor setting, in a, you know, in a confined area, to have that many people, we could start seeing again spikes, and we're just now starting to see the decline. So, you know, what we're doing appears to be working, which is not having these large events, you know, not having big groups of people together and things like that. So she would be, I guess at this point, opposed to that. We did also talk about having a CERT team meeting with Steve Massey from the hospital and Patrick from the school and stuff later this week, and get their input and bring that back as well to the work session to really kind of get dialed in and make a good educated decision at that time on whether this should move forward or not.
But we can apply for it. It's whether we have it or not is the key.
Correct. We need to get the parade permit in approximately 2 months in advance just to be able to shut the roads down to have it.
Right.
We will go ahead and do that.
Okay.
You know, and like I said, so we'll get that done. So we at least have the option of having the parade if, you know, things are looking really good and the council decides they want to move forward with it, we'll be ready. So that's the plan of action that we have right now, is to go ahead and apply for the parade permit for St. Patty's Day. And then at the council work session, kind of make that final decision on where we're at. We'll have a better understanding of the vaccination and who's all being vaccinated and where we're at on that, and make a good educated decision at that point.
Yeah, I spent the last couple of weekends driving through our downtown on weekend nights. Just, I don't go to the bars anymore because I've been just staying away from people. But I am amazed at the number of people in the bars. And it's their decision. I'm not judging them. So I was just watching the numbers from the county. I'm just surprised that it's dropping as quickly as it is. I had a long conversation with the county epidemiologist. I pointed that out to her, that she's actually born and raised here in New Richmond, but it just amazes me that as busy as the restaurants and bars are at night, that the number is still dropping. So I just
Yeah.
it's an observation.
Yep. And I think that those are all those things that we need to take into consideration, and again, getting more input, you know, and I think it was actually Michelle that said it very early on in this, is we need to be doing everything we can to ensure that our kids get to go to school, and, you know, taking those things into consideration and making sure as everybody's going back and school's getting back to normal, that we aren't circumventing that process and perhaps putting the rest of, you know, sports and all that other stuff in jeopardy as we move into the spring and
And the
rest of winter,
vaccinations.
And
the vaccinations.
Yep, and the vaccinations.
Thank you.
So question, I just would like to put this out, Mayor, that to Alderman Kittle's question / statement, if we apply for parade permits for a particular date, will folks take that as a tacit approval that event's going to happen?
I hope not. It wasn't intended. That question wasn't intended for that. The question was intended, if things look better in the next month or two or a month and a half, and more positive, would there be a possibility of having it? Not saying that there would be a parade for sure, but if we don't have the application 2 months in advance, that would be a sign that we would make a decision right now or within the next couple of days that we can't have it. All I'm saying is apply, get the application. We'll have to make a decision later on whether the parade goes on or not. But I think we at least should apply and have the capability to have the parade if things look better.
Yeah, Craig, for what it's worth, I didn't take your comment as an endorsement of it or approval. What I was, my question is, if we apply for a parade permit and it's granted by the state, do the organizers of those events assume they've got the green light? And I understand the quandary is, well, if we just sit back and don't apply, then that really takes the decision out of anybody's hand. We've already said no. But I just, the thing is that when we apply for these parade permits, not knowing what the future is going to be, there needs to be a very strong understanding. That doesn't mean the parade's going to happen, that we still retain the right to say yes or no. That's all. That was the whole purpose of my point.
Can Alderman Montello, if I can just clarify, and the only one that I'm talking about applying for would be the St. Patrick's Day parade. I would not be putting in applications for the other two parades until they are closer. So, you know, I agree with you. I'm not endorsing that we have a parade by applying for the parade permit. You know, but I think that until we have all that information from the CERT group and everybody on the council can do their research, listen to the professionals and whatever that may be, you know, I think that buys us till at least the work session this month, which I think would probably be the latest I'd want to make a decision on it. You know, to have the manpower available and give the organizers of the event an opportunity to move forward. But I think, you know, by applying for the parade permit and making sure that we're upfront with the organizers that, hey, this doesn't mean that it's a done deal, that we go from there.
Yeah, and we can also look into what other communities, St. Paul, the other River Falls, the other communities that put on parades, kind of where are they at as well?
Yeah, and I think, you know, a big part of it is just really just inviting them to have a seat at the table and be part of the conversation, and what are some of the concerns, and, you know, what are we hearing from public health, what are we hearing from local businesses, and you know, be part of the conversation. We don't want it to just be, are you for the parade or are you against the parade? You know, let's have some healthy dialogue on it, and you know, be part of the, you know, the problem solving, and hopefully have a recommendation no later than the work session. But we are looking to have a CERT meeting later this week, and you know, begin discussing this matter in particular. And I know that the organizers of the Shamrock, when they reached out to the city clerk, you know, about this, they're aware that this isn't a guarantee that, hey, if we submit it, you know, that it's approved. So I think, especially in the last few months with the increase in cases, I think folks, you know, we realize this is real, and you know, we don't want to just say yes or no, but let's look at this in a little more detail.
All right, I think you got your next steps, I should say. Thank you. Item 7.5 is resolution 012101, authorizing city staff to apply for financial assistance from the state of Wisconsin Environmental Improvement Fund.
Mayor Horn and City Council, this resolution is just authorizing staff to apply for state funding. This funding would support a private lead service line replacement program. We have over 120 private lead service lines here in the community. There's state funding that would help pay for the replacement of those. This is a project that we would present at a work session later early this year to the City Council. We did include funding in the utility CIP, $100,000 towards this project. This authorizing resolution just allows us to seek the grant funding. We have to submit that this month in order to be eligible. So the resolution in your packet, resolution 012101, authorizes the city staff to apply for state funding in support of the private lead service line replacement program. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Hearing none, I'd enter, the floor is open for a motion.
I would make a motion to approve resolution 012101.
So we have a motion to approve, and do we have a, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
And that motion passes. Item 7.6 is the request for proposals, phase 1 and 2 environmental site assessments for the Beebe building.
Mayor Horn and City Council, included in your packet is a request for proposals for a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessment for the Beebe building. Phase 1 environmental site assessment includes an inspection of the property, interviews with current and previous owners, a review of available records regarding the storage of potentially hazardous materials. And then that phase 2 includes the actual testing. So this would be looking if there's, there could be lead, there could be radon, there could be mold, asbestos, etc. And if basically this request for proposals would begin basically soliciting proposals from firms that specialize in this work. Whether the Girard Corporation and their project moves forward or not, any developer is going to want this completed before they would close on the property. So this doesn't commit the city to tearing the building down. It really is something that any developer in their financial institution are going to require that this be completed. If a firm is selected by the city in February as proposed, we would then use that firm's proposal as part of a grant application where the city would receive up to $150,000 towards the cost of the project, both the cost of the testing and that could also be potentially for the abatement. So in the event that the Girard Corporation is successful in receiving their financing this spring, and if this testing is done and we say, yep, there's some things that would have to be remedied before the building can be demolished, these grant funds can be used to help offset that. So this is really an opportunity to help bring the cost down of the project, to hopefully bring $150,000 from the state towards the project. This is really just the first step tonight, is just going ahead with the RFP. Tonight is just authorizing staff to publish the RFP for the environmental site assessment. This would come back to the city council in February. So tonight is just saying, go ahead and publish it. We send it out to some different companies in the area.
No, do you have any kind of idea how much that would cost?
For the environmental site assessment?
For both phase 1 and 2?
Phase 1 is usually very minimal. I mean, you're talking a few $1,000s. That phase 2 can really vary just depending on the size of the building. That could be $10,000, $20,000. That could be $50,000, $75,000. Really depends on what type of testing they're proposing. And again, they'll kind of have a better idea based on the phase 1. So
and age of the building.
Age of the building. Yep. Are there concerns about underground contamination? Are there any concerns about the air quality in the building? So phase 1 kind of will lead to phase 2. But it's it's hard to throw out a number there at this time on what that might run.
And we would pay the upfront costs of these studies, correct?
So the grant, it would be it's a reimbursement. So
Okay,
we
so
would
we
pay
would
it
pay
up front.
for it and
we
then
get
get
reimbursed by the
reimbursed.
state.
Okay.
Yep. So again, these tests would have to be done. I mean, they could have been done last year already.
Right.
They can be done any time, but we wouldn't want this to postpone the Girard project if they move forward with this. Right. They don't want to say, hey, we want to take the building down in a couple months, and then we find out at the 11th hour, oh, actually there's this, and this wrong with it, and now suddenly their project gets postponed. So.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I would make a motion that the city in Richmond puts out phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. Approve a study for those 2 items.
All right, there's a motion to approve a request for proposals. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? In hearing none, call the roll.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
And that motion passes as well. Item 7.7 is the purchasing policy and procedure.
Ray Niles is on the call. This item is included in your packet. No formal action is required tonight. It's kind of a first reading, but I'll turn it over to Rand. You can see her here on video as well. She can give a brief background and overview of the purchasing policy included in your packet.
Thank you, Noah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Noah had mentioned, and as we discussed during the December meeting, we identified various gaps that exist in our current ordinance language for purchases, as well as areas of opportunity that we can improve the transparency and consistency of our existing purchasing procedures. So from a staff perspective, we drafted a policy document that establishes various levels of purchases, and then the procedures, and identifies roles and responsibilities of not only staff, but boards and commissions and the council as well, when we go to procure various goods and services, as well as public construction. So I can certainly address any questions that the council has this evening. But as Noah had mentioned, we do want to just take this as the opportunity to do a first reading. We would bring this back during the January work session to have a more detailed conversation. Additionally, this policy has been distributed to all department heads for them to take the next week and two to provide comments and feedback as well at the various stages of where there might have to be some additional language inserted for definitions or things of that nature as well.
Ram, this is Alderman Montello. There's a comment in here. I'm sorry, I just had it in front of me here a moment ago. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Talking about, employees, staff. It probably doesn't say council people, but certainly it could or should, getting a benefit. Maybe you can think of where that is in the policy, that it refers to people getting a gift in excess of $20. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, I do. I believe it's in
It's
the
under
first.
ethical standard.
Correct.
It's item 3. Employees are prohibited from accepting gifts from entities or persons with which the city does business. Excuse me. I think certainly that could include those in the decision-making process as well, which obviously refers to city council. But specifically, a question I have for you is, and this doesn't need to be answered tonight, I'll just throw this out for consideration. I know that there have been businesses who maybe provide some food, whether, maybe department-wide, that kind of thing. And technically, would that not be a violation of this policy? And I think the policy is a great idea. Wouldn't it be a violation of the policy because that food, if it's for department, obviously is in excess of $20?
Right. And this language is similar to what's existing in the current employee handbook. So I think, of those types of things, we have to be very cautious of what those are looking like, and really adhere to kind of the best practice of respectfully declining those. There are instances where there isn't a vendor relationship. So those maybe, fall underneath a different category. But again, I think it's being on the cautious side of those types of things, and, respectfully declining those types of things. If they're kind of de minimis, and not regularly occurring, those types of things and it's very small, so somebody might bring in, a donuts or something like that, where it would fall underneath that dollar threshold. Again, and that would potentially be acceptable. Again, I think it's just balancing and weighing on the side of caution with that, and the perception, again, with it. So with this policy, it will be, certainly some educational components of it, for staff as for boards and commission members too, to make sure that everyone understands what those certain languages mean, and providing examples like you did, Mike, of what that would translate into a certain scenario potentially, that could arise and how to handle those.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, so this is a first reading, so we'll bring it up again at the work session. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out to Rayanne. Otherwise, there's a few things I have questions. I'll reach out to you, Rayanne, about it, but I think it's well written and it fills a gap. So, all right. Item 8 is communications and miscellaneous. Anybody have any communications? Noah?
I just had one brief update for residents who haven't yet put your Christmas tree out on the curb. If you have a real tree, Monday the 18th is the last day that public works staff will be picking that up. So just for those tuning in from home tonight, if you've got a real tree, still haven't taken it down, put your Christmas decorations away, no later than Monday at 7 a.m., have that out on the curb.
There was a email I sent out to city council as well. If anyone was just wondering, meetings, we're looking at having a short meeting next Monday at 5 o'clock, a special council meeting for a CSM. We do have quorum for that. So your calendar should reflect a 5 p.m. meeting Monday the 18th, and then the 5 p.m. work session on Monday the 25th. So I'll follow up with the virtual logins for everybody on those.
In the meeting for the special meeting next week should probably be 15 minutes.
Yeah,
so
real short one.
And both will be available that you can join virtually or here as we are tonight.
You have a time for Monday, the 25th?
5 p.m.
5?
Yep.
And on that note, I do have a hard stop at 6. I have some fire training that has to be done that day. There's a certification. I have to a recertification. So you guys are obviously welcome to continue on, but I have a hard stop at 6. Any other communications? All right, adjournment. You guys want to stay here all
I'll make
night?
a
or-
motion. I'll make a
All
motion
right.
that we adjourn.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Take care, everybody.
Watch Tiger basketball
Thank-
tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
That JV team is looking especially good lately.
It's because they have a brilliant coach.
It's the coaching. It's 100%.
Mike sounded better than I thought he would.
What was that?
Mike sounded better than I thought he would.
Yeah.
If Mike gets an opportunity to talk, he's going to fight through anything.
If I was